That's number 3 Michigan at number 10 Penn State. It's noon Eastern on Fox. By now, you understand the program. The big game is at 11 a.m. Central and noon Eastern time. And frankly, there's no bigger game on the calendar this weekend. There just ain't. Because it's not just number 3 Michigan versus number 10 Penn State. It is going to be the first ranked opponent that Michigan has faced all year. And they have skated in a way that has frustrated so many people because no other team other than Texas Christian has gone that far without playing a ranked opponent. And they haven't played a ranked opponent in the college football playoff. It's really difficult to get a read on how good or not good Michigan is, but I think the read is pretty clear. They did this last year, and we all thought, myself included, it was kind of a fluke. No, it's not. They were just running over people, and they continue to run over people. Ryan Walters and Purdue were the latest victims. Penn State, that game is going to be in Happy Valley this year, and, they got a bone to pick as they got throttled 41-17 just this time last year. Now, backing this up, the last time that the Penn State played a defense that was as good as Michigan, they scored all of 12 points and went 1 of 16 on third down. And Drew Aller was so good that he told media after the game he sucked. His words, not mine. It's real difficult to look at that Penn State team and see a way for them to beat that Michigan team that has been both scarily efficient offensively and defensively. Because A, Penn State has been beating everybody they're supposed to. But seems like when somebody's got a number above their head, they tend to play like we would expect a lower seed to play. So you take a look at this. James Franklin is 3-16 against top 10 teams and lost the 11 of 12 to, top 10 teams. Like the only win they got is not even in the regular season. It's against Utah in the Rose Bowl in 2023. And you'll be the first to remember Cam Rising goes out in that game. And then Penn State kind of walks to the victory. But Cam Rising made that team just a little bit different. And I still think he would make Utah different if he could play. But you get my point here. In the Big Ten, they've just been the third best team. And frankly, the third best team in their own division because Ohio State and Michigan are in their division. Now, Penn State held Ohio State to 20 points. In recent years, we'd say that's a big deal. Not really this year because the Ohio State offense has not been the one that we've come to know associated with Ryan Day. It's good enough to win. It ain't putting up 45, 48, and 50 on people like we are used to. See Rutgers, for whom they've been winning by an average of about 40 and putting up 49. They struggled to get to 35 against a bowl-eligible Rutgers team, but you get my point here. Meanwhile, we're talking about a Penn State defense that has also been pretty damn good. Like, they're holding people to 4.0 yards per play. That's really good. Now, they might get Chop Robinson back, which would be great because they lost him in the Ohio State game, and I think he changes their defense for the better. But you can't get over not just the record that Penn State has had against really good opponents, notably Michigan and Ohio State, but just how good Michigan has been this season alone. Some facts that'll sneak up on you. Roman Wilson, wide receiver, is tied with Marvin Harrison Jr. for receiving touchdowns in this season with 10, right? I looked up and said, really? It's actually better than that. It's Blake Corum, who leads the FBS in rushing TDs with 16. It's a Michigan defense that is allowing 6.7 points per game. That is the fewest amount of points allowed by a Michigan football team through 9 games since 1985. They're really good, but the one that I think you should focus on is the only other team to hold its first 9 opponents to 14 or fewer over the last 20 years is 2021 Georgia. And we would all tell you that 2021 Georgia is the scariest defense that Kirby Smart has ever had. Full stop. So if you are keeping pace with those dudes, you are legitimate on defense. And J.J. McCarthy, dude I haven't said out loud yet, is a Heisman finalist if Michigan continues to do what they've been doing, mostly because it's a quarterback-driven award, and Blake Corum is not having the kind of production that he did last year, this year. But, you have a big game that could change too. Ask Aiden Hutchinson about going off against Ohio State, becoming a Heisman finalist, becoming a first-round draft pick overnight, or at least that's how it felt to me. But this game also has some really heavy implications for the Big Ten, aside from Michigan, Ohio State, but really Penn State. Like, I could tell you that this is the biggest game that Penn State has played, at least in the last 5 years, maybe the last 7 years, for one simple fact. If Penn State beats Michigan and then Michigan beats Ohio State, all of them would finish with a Big Ten record of 8-1. Tie right, for the Big Ten East title. Now we go into tiebreaker criteria, for which we got to go through 5 points to get to the one that would actually decide who is the Big Ten East champ. That's how tight Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan would be if Penn State could beat Michigan and Michigan could beat Ohio State. Now, it comes down to my favorite, strength of schedule, like your record. So the way that this is written down in the Big Ten rulebook, the Big Ten East champ would be decided by a tiebreaker criteria for which you would have to get the 5th point in determining who would be the winner by comparing winning percentage against non-division opponents faced, right? So opponents outside of the East, how did they do when you faced them? And then what are their overall records? Put another way, strength of schedule. Penn State holds the edge by just 1 game because Penn State opponents have gone 8-10 in Big Ten play as non-divisional opponents. Ohio State and Michigan, 7-11. We still got a lot of football left to play, but you could see how Penn State puts themselves right back into not just an opportunity to, play for the Big Ten championship, but to make the college football playoff for the first time in school history. That's no small thing. A lot riding on this game, and this game being at Beaver Stadium, this is going to be one of your better opportunities. Maybe not your best opportunity, but one of your better opportunities to go beat what we think is perhaps the best Michigan football team that Jim Harbaugh has ever coached. Now, outside of that, we're looking back at what Michigan has done, which is beat 21 straight Big Ten opponents and won 27 straight regular season games. Like, you really got to get to the postseason and the college football playoff before you can start talking about the last couple of years for what Michigan calls losing, right? And even that Texas Christian game where Texas Christian beat them, J.J. McCarthy had to throw them the ball a couple of times for them to get that win, right? Now, I understand how someone can say, well, they were stealing signals. All right, dog. Connor Stallions ain't been on the sideline for like a month. And all those kids have done, and I want to say this again, all those kids have done is go wreck shop. Like, I understand that you want to penalize coaches for participating if they did in alleged cheating, sign stealing, knowing plays before the play was run, fine. But at the end of the day, it's blocking and tackling. And those dudes have blocked and tackled better than anybody else in the Big Ten for the past 2 years. Players play, coaches coach. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Michigan to beat Penn State because I got Michigan as the #1 team in the entire country. And remember, it's me saying this, right? It's going to be difficult for Penn State to come up with a way. But if they do, Drew Allar's going to be at the forefront of that. Tyler Warren's going to be at the forefront of that. Keandre Lambert-Smith going to be at the forefront of that. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. Olu Fashion, going to have to keep his record of not having given up a sack in 3 seasons. Like, he's gotten beat before, but goodness me, they're going to have to play one hell of a football game on both sides of the ball to give themselves an opportunity to win that thing at the end. And the good news about beating Michigan is if you can get out in front of them, they got a hard time coming from behind to beat you. So it's going to be take your points when you can and try to go win a football game that could really change the entire tenor of James Franklin's career at Penn State and the tenor of Penn State football for the foreseeable future. If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.